Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Arrow, Season 5, Episode 7. It's called Vigilante. Full spoilers for the episode, as always. And Connor is a little bit more out of it than usual this week.
Aye, in addition to being drunk on a honey bourbon this week, I've been awake for nearly a full day, so I'm kind of spaced out.
Yeah. The perfect situation to be in when discussing Arrow.
To be fair, it's a pretty bland episode.
It really was, like, it wasn't terrible, like, it wasn't, like, bad, it wasn't good, it was just a really by the numbers episode.
It was one of those. I feel like maybe 2 weeks ago we said how this season's been really annoying to talk about because it hasn't been as bad as it was, and we couldn't laugh at it as much. But
Yeah,
it wasn't good enough to like talk about either. And then last week got absolutely ridiculous.
it did. To their credit, though, their resolution of last week's ridiculous like reveal cliffhanger was actually the sensible like approach, where
Yeah.
Quentin says, "No, this is bollocks. That's not me. I can't do that," and assumes that someone's messing with him, and Thea assumes that someone's messing with him, so he goes to rehab. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. After the whole season 2 plotline with Laurel going through rehab, I'm not really ready to see any more of that sort of plot. But at least it made
But
sense.
it is better than going, yes, you must be a ninja.
Even though you've never been a ninja before. Yeah, clearly you're a ninja now.
And also, I like that it definitively says, at least to us, the audience, that this isn't him because we see Prometheus at the end after this has gone down.
Unless we get some sort of weird flashback later on
Oh.
of him sneaking out of the rehab centre, then yeah.
I bloody hope not.
The main plot of this one is that Vigilante, as in the character Vigilante from DC Comics, is around Star City and he is outright just like headshotting people. He's killing bank robbers, he's killing muggers and whatever else, and the gang have to track him down. And the team even sort of question if they should. And Oliver, quite rightly, might I add, points out that last week they were all pissed at him because he was taking people out once upon a time. Quite rightly, might I add.
Yeah, and they're like, last week they were all righteous, like, oh, you're a killer. How can we do anything with you? How can you be doing this good when you're a killer? This week, it's like, well, I know he's a killer, but they deserve it, right? Oh, come on.
Flippy floppy is what I'd describe that
Uh,
writing. Which, it just kind of feels like characters react to things whatever the writer thinks they need to react for that week. They don't really seem to be consistently.
they're not set characters. Like, I feel like, at least about most of this new bunch, they're not really still not like set characters. They're like, well, this week they're against something, next week they're for it. Yeah, who cares?
Yeah, they're kind of wishy washy. I will say this Evelyn, again, this episode, what was it? You were paying attention. She said something at the same time I said something.
She did. It was right near the start, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was in the quiver, the arrow cave.
Yeah. Oh man, what was it?
It was something to do with killing and that being okay. And Oliver said, "Oh, we need to stop him," and then I was thinking, "Yeah, but who decides if you should be stopped?" And then she immediately said, "Yeah, but who decides who the vigilantes are and who the killers
I
are?"
think, I think, yeah, I think it was like he's a serial killer,
Yeah,
and she goes, "Oh, but who is it up to you that decide who's a serial killer and who's a
yeah.
vigilante?"
But
Something like
it
that.
was basically the exact same thought I was saying out loud at the
You
same
said it
time.
like maybe like half a second before her.
Yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
like, so you know what? Evelyn's on the ball. She's having the. I don't necessarily think she's a very good actress, or
Nope.
if her character's well written, but at least the broad things she is saying are making sense.
Yeah, that's like 2 or 3 weeks in a row she's been on the same side as
Yeah,
us, the audience.
yeah. No, so well done there. Well done there. Uh, as for the vigilante stuff, I'm not entirely sure why whenever it went to his POV, it was like the Predator,
It
thermovision.
was it was it was those cool goggles, isn't it? Those ski goggles are actually thermal vision goggles.
Sure they were.
Just call it like I see it.
It wasn't even really thermal vision though. It was kind of red like thermal vision, but it didn't look exactly like it though.
No, it didn't. And then it had all the squares to say where they all were.
So I don't know if that's them saying it's not that, it just is similar, or if it's them just doing a bad job at recreating thermal vision.
Honestly, I'm more inclined to say it's a bad job.
With this show, who knows? The other thing with Prometheus that was kind of bothersome was the voice that he was rocking. He had this very cheesy 80s cartoon villain voice.
Prometheus or Vigilante?
Vigilante, did I say Prometheus?
You said Prometheus.
Apologies, I meant Vigilante.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, he did. It sounded like, you know how in the last few years we've had a lot of 80s parodies again?
Mm.
It sounds like the voice you get in one of those, where it's intentionally funny in those, but in this they're playing it as straight.
Yeah, nah, that is what it sounded like. It was pretty bad. That said, though, I thought he had a decent enough presence. You know, when he was having like a standoff and he had his guns out and
Mm.
the music was pretty decent. And I will say this: the music in general seems to have been a little bit better the last few episodes.
Yeah, it cracked me up when Quentin pulled out the throwing star Shothier and the Prometheus scene kicked in.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. But it's not a bad bit of music. Like it's fine. It's like
It's not, and it worked for the moment
yeah.
because that's kind of what the point was, but it was still amusing.
Yeah, if it was someone who wasn't as ridiculous to suggest that this was Prometheus, it would have been an effective use of the music. It's just because it's so ridiculous that he might be Prometheus that it's just kind of funny.
Yeah, it's
But
like the idea that they think we can buy that for even a second as a
yeah,
cliffhanger. It's just like, come on.
yeah. So yeah, they eventually track him down. Oliver has a new arrow that he shoots out that creates a bulletproof sort of blanket that covers like an area. Although I did think it was a bit weird that it was the exact right size for the window that he shot it at.
Maybe it's like a foam and it just expands out to where it needs to be.
Uh,
I don't know. I'm spitballing here.
I don't know. And the other thing about Oliver that really cracked me up in this episode is, so eventually Diggle has this idea that they'll fake a bank heist to draw the vigilante out because they don't know how to find him. So everyone, including Felicity, might I add, in like this like all black like military looking gear, go in to rob this bank, and she's like hacking into things and all that.
And
Uh,
the clownish masks as
yeah,
well.
yeah. What's it? I thought it was more like demonic masks, but whatever, cheap Halloween masks. That yeah,
Yeah, I say clown. You know what I mean.
yeah. Basically, that opening scene from The Dark Knight when they're all wearing masks, kind of
Yeah,
that look.
that.
But nah, so Vigilante shows up and he's got Curtis and he like has him down on his knees and he's like, "I want to speak to the Green Arrow," because he's talking to Ragman and Wild Dog, and Oliver like Green Arrow just steps out of like this hallway at the side, like just casually. Is it as if he was just hiding there?
Yeah, just waiting for this the whole time.
He doesn't come running in. He just sort of saunters out as if he was waiting right behind the door. He's like, "They don't have to."
Mm.
So hey ho. But nah, they kind of beat him, but he gets away, so he'll pop up again eventually at some point. Who knows when? Uh, Other plot lines include Diggle being upset and getting violent because he's missing his son's 2 year, or his second birthday, 2 year,
Yeah,
t-
yeah. I was gonna say, what
2 year
was that
anniversary
sentence?
of birth. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, which was weird because obviously we saw the picture of him in Flash.
He looked like 4 in the picture.
Yeah, it was like, when he said it, I actually thought I misheard. I said to you, I was like, did he say second or seventh? And it wasn't until he said second again that I was like,
Yeah.
okay, because that's how old I thought he was in
Now,
that picture.
to be fair, when we actually see him at the end of the episode, he does actually look closer to 2 than any of the other ages. It's
He
just
does, but I mean, I'm sure we even mentioned on this review, or maybe it was the Flash one where that brought up that we said not only has it changed from baby Sarah to baby John, it's actually aged up as well. But
I thought that at the
this
time,
hasn't.
but clearly they've just
Yeah,
not
but
went with that.
that's how much it looked like it because we
Yeah.
straight up just said no, they've aged them up, but clearly not,
Yeah,
unless
yeah,
they've changed their mind in the last in those few weeks.
yeah. It looked 4 or 5 when we seen him in that photo. At least from my memory. I mean, maybe if I went back and looked at it now, but and really scrutinised it, maybe I'd feel differently. But
This is the thing: the fact that we saw that and then said no, they've aged him up straight away. It must have looked pretty blatantly aged up.
yeah, that's a fair point. So we had that. We also, and of course, they solve it by Wild Dog kind of doing a friendly thing and getting Lila and his son to show up at the hive base where he's living, so they can have their own little private party. So they're doing a little bit of bonding, which is, to be fair, I think's needed. I think they should be try to bond some of these characters. Do you know, I will say this: I am enjoying Ragman's powers. I like his throwing people around and like bulletproof sort of shield that he does for everyone.
Also, one of my positives for this episode is I found Ragman easy to understand this week. I feel like they're
Ah,
clearing up
yeah.
his voice a bit better.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like it's just a sort of deeper voice like Oliver's, but with like an added sort of whisper effect on top that's not
Yeah,
as
but
intrusive.
before that whisper effect was so overpowering.
Yeah, because it was like multiple whisper effects, whereas here it just felt like an echo kind of thing almost.
Yeah, and now I can actually understand what he's saying, which,
Helps.
helps.
Yeah. Yeah, there was. Yeah, because there was that whole section where they're trying to find both Vigilante and the guy that the Vigilante's after. And they, like Mr. Terrific and Wild Dog go to the gun shop, try to find where Vigilante bought his bullets. That's where Diggle sort of gets violent. And the other side of it is Evelyn wears like a dress and gets all made up as if she's going out for like a party or something, and lures a criminal.
She is essentially putting herself as rape bait. I'm not being funny. That is literally what she's trying to do.
Yes, because she gets the guy to follow her, and he follows her into an alleyway and starts like trying to chat her up.
Yeah,
Uh,
like
And of course, Ragman shows up immediately, so they knew she wasn't in any danger. But
but that is what she was doing.
yeah, that's what she was doing. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, it was all carrot, no stick. Well, Ragman was a stick, but it started off with carrot.
It did start off with Carrot, yeah.
But yeah, so that's that. Flashbacks were. Do you know how I always feel that the flashbacks are really trying to cut costs, and even though it's nice having Dolph Lundgren, and I'm enjoying Dolph Lundgren just monologuing to his heart's content, I really felt the cost cutting in this episode because everything took place either in a dining room or the hallway outside the dining room. Like that was the entire set of flashbacks, and it really felt weird because it felt like. So they bring Oliver out to talk to him at dinner, and he ends the scene with saying, "Oh yeah, that woman that was on the island with you, that you're fighting for vengeance. Yeah, that's her mother. That's my maid. You know." And
It felt really contrived, didn't
that
it?
felt really contrived. But what bothered me even more is then when it comes back to the flashbacks again, it picks up right after that, as if I'm like, this was clearly meant to be one whole scene, and you're just
You've just split up for the sake
Yeah.
of splitting it up, yeah.
yeah, because comes back. That's a bit of cutlery that I'm hitting, by the way, guys, in case you wonder what that noise is. But it comes back, and he immediately just says, "You don't believe me, do you?" There's like, and they're still sitting there.
Yeah, like it's just a continuation. It's the next sentence. It's not. I feel like even most of the time the Flash we complain, but at least they feel like individual scenes, even if they're
Yeah.
not very good scenes and they're shortened. They do feel like scenes.
I do have an odd complaint about the flashbacks though.
Okay.
They say that Oliver's been getting like tortured for like 2 weeks because they're trying to get information out of him.
I thought it said like 3 days or something, but okay.
I'm pretty sure he says a week of torture, then a week of something else. It was something like that.
Right,
I can't
okay.
remember the exact phrase, but at least a week. I think 2.
Right. He
It-
doesn't
it-
look like that, does he?
The last bit I was going to get to, he does
Yeah.
not look like he's been. His shirt has a little bit of blood on it. Like that was
Yeah,
kind of it.
he looks like he's had a couple of cuts.
Honestly,
He looks barely in worse state than when we last saw him.
yeah. Honestly, he looks like he was maybe drunk last night and fell, and that's kind of the extent of it.
He looks like like you said, he was drunk and then he fell through a hedge.
Yeah, and that's him. That's how he looks.
Yeah.
And I hate to be nitpicky like that, but at the same time, I'm like,
If you want us to believe he was tortured, like properly tortured, because they're saying, "Oh, you stood up to all this torture."
the way Saunter's in the room, he doesn't feel like he's been through this. I feel like at the very least, take his shirt off, because if you take his shirt off and he's got like cuts and stuff on his back, and
and proper like pull him in, like
Yeah.
like make him look. Because even if he did stand up to it and he didn't, give up any information,
yeah,
he's got to look physically beaten at least.
yeah, he should barely be able to stand if he's been getting tortured for a week.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I didn't buy any of that. That was just kind of weird. Of course, the plot there turns out to be that Bratva and Krovar, that's probably the completely wrong name. I'm just
Kovar.
Kovar, yeah. I'm just throwing out a similar sounding Russian name and hoping it sticks. But Dolph Lundgren, basically, and the Bratva have actually made a deal. They're not these bitter enemies that they thought they were. They've actually negotiated, and Oliver's in disbelief. So who knows where this is going from here? I don't know. We know that he can't get them all to hate him, though, because we know that at least in season 1 of Arrow, he's on good
He
terms
was
with
a
them.
Bratva member, yeah.
Yeah, they helped him. They were assisting him as if they, were friends. So
Yeah.
at the very least, we know it has to end with him being in a good place with Bratva. So,
Yeah.
which I guess just leaves the old. Well, actually, no, I suppose we should briefly mention Oliver's dating life, since it was
Aye.
featured. So the reporter finally got him out for a drink. She gave him one bit of advice, and then they went out for another drink at the end, and that was kind of it.
Cool.
Sure, it was fine. Honestly, it wasn't that bad. It was just kind of. And
It wasn't bad. That's kind of how I feel about most of this episode, though. It's not that bad, but
yeah, honestly,
what about it should make me care?
the only things that were really that bad in this episode were Vigilante's voice and flashbacks with like some of the like character flip flop motivations, but on the whole, it wasn't that bad. There was some decent action, Ragman using his powers. And Joe, I'll give them credit for actually in the flashback. The fight between Kovar and Oliver was essentially just a punch for punch match, kind of like how his fight with Damien Dark was, but this showed how to do it in a much more interesting way.
Yeah, I'll give it that.
And I was actually kind of laughing as I was watching it because obviously, Dolph Lundgren was in Rocky 4, it was, boxing movie, and it felt like they were kind of doing like a harsher version of boxing.
Yeah. I really liked when he stabbed him in the hand as well. Like it felt like, yeah, these guys are enemies. There is some desperation there.
Yeah, but at least I thought, even though it was essentially just punching back and forth, it felt kind of violent and brutal as opposed to.
Yeah, that's because they were moving rather than stood completely still and just taking turns to take a swing.
But so credit where credit's due. So yeah, it just leaves the ending. So we see Prometheus at the end, and shock and horror twist. Evelyn is working for Prometheus. She is a double agent.
Because of course one of them is. Because of course Prometheus knew that these people were going to get recruited.
Not only that's not even my big complaint with this. I remember back when this season started, a month or so ago. I
should bloody hope so. It wasn't that long.
I remember saying, why are we... Like, one of my big complaints in the first couple of episodes is, why are we trusting this random guy, this girl who was outright a villain last season? It felt like, why are these people being trusted with the secret that he's Oliver Queen? Like, that was the thing mainly, is when he revealed himself to them, I'm like, but why? Why have they earned this trust?
That's the thing. Curtis earned his place.
Yes, Curtis has been around for a whole year. He's been helping them with other things.
He's earned his place. Maybe not as a fighter, but he's earned his place.
Ragman...
The other two...
Ragman's a little bit different because at least he... Well, I don't know if he is. But
the thing is, I don't know if he earned his place either, but I can at least see them telling him out of guilt.
Yeah, because of the whole Felicity nuking his city thing.
Yeah, like, he is directly their fault.
Yeah.
Like, with the other two,
Yeah. And Ragman, in terms of like a power set, because he's the only one with powers, is actually the most interesting, because he brings a different dimension to the combat, whereas Artemis is just another archer. Wild Dog's basically just like a street version of Diggle.
He's Diggle 2.0 anyway.
Yeah, he's Diggle, but with like an attitude kind of thing.
That's okay. I said I have a few positives. Another one was, you talked about them bonding. I liked when they were all training with the sticks, and him and Diggle were like, two sticks proper going for it, and then just Artemis and Curtis just pussy mode with one stick each, going really slowly.
They're at a beginner level.
Yeah, the other positive I have is Diggle's arms. God damn, those things are impressive. Like, when he just walks around the base in a tank top, how do you not notice those things? They are huge.
Other positive for this episode, Diggle's arms are impressive.
They really are. Credit where it's due. Man works out.
Oh dear. Yeah. So yeah, what I was saying is that this girl was actually trying to kill people last year. You have just recruited her, not based on much, and all of a sudden we're going to be surprised that she's actually working for the villain. Although I'm almost tempted to believe one of two things here. One, she actually is working for Prometheus, but she'll have a redemption arc over the rest of the season. Whenever, maybe mid-season's when they find out, and then she redeems herself over the last half.
Or two, it's a plant from Oliver.
She's a triple agent.
Yeah.
Say it properly, because she's a triple agent.
I didn't want to say that, because I don't want to give Arrow even more stupid layers than it has.
Triple agent. Calling it now, Evelyn's a triple agent. She wouldn't do us wrong. She's been calling Oliver out and all his shit, all his serial killing ways. And I loved
So
it this week. I hate to go back to something we already spoke about, but I loved it. They called out Oliver on his shit, and then this week Oliver called them out on calling him out on his shit to prove his point this week. Like,
So that's the thing. Like you said, individually, this episode isn't that bad because if you take that as just this episode, they're fine.
you're right,
But in
actually. Yeah.
context of the past three, where they've been flipping and flopping every episode, it's like this is getting annoying. Stop it. Pick a side and stick with it.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Getting annoyed at this. Really am.
All right, that's Arrow this week, guys. If you were hoping for more of a positive review, I love how we started by saying it's hard to talk about this because it's so mundane, and then we went
Like,
we went longer than we did The Flash yesterday, which, you know.
well, you got me on a rant, didn't you?
That said,
And
though,
Diggo's arms.
Supergirl is still consistently giving us the most to talk about. So,
It's because it's consistently the best show.
oofed. I probably like Supergirl more than Flash now. Actually, too, but still, I think that was a bit too
Maybe
too
a bit
cutting.
blunt.
Yeah, a bit blunt.
It might have been,
yeah.
yeah.
Flash is still good.
I apologise for the Flash
Yeah.
fans. Flash is great. And Legends is better.
Yeah, Legends is good this season. Actually, yeah, I'm having fun with Legends. Just Arrow.
Yeah.
Let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments. Like and subscribe and all that stuff. If you're looking for more positive reviews, I apologise, but we have to be true to ourselves. We can't
Wow.
lie.
Exactly. That's the big theme of Arrow, right?
Is it?
Don't lie. Come
Oh,
on.
don't lie. Yeah, sure, yeah. That's not lying to yourself, though. It's lying to other people that Arrow's very...
This is still the same.
It's
Still
those,
lying.
it's those smoke ladies, Felicity and Donna. That's their superpower. They don't lie until they do.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, and then once they do, their
And
emotions...
once they lie, cities get nuked.
I was about to make that exact joke, but I'll let you have it. It's fine. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.